Don't do these 6 blunders, but eat tomatoes. They may be lethal. Tomatoes, they told us, were a gift from nature to the gut, the skin, and the heart. And it's partly accurate. However, what if I told you that the majority of consuming tomatoes on a daily basis causes silent, undetectable, and occasionally fatal health damage? This is not a hypothesis. It is scientific. More than 27 studies in 2023 alone uncovered startling facts regarding typical tomato behaviors. One of them demonstrated that in persons over 60, a single inadvertent tomato-related error could increase inflammatory indicators by more than 76%. Nevertheless, 99% of adults over 60 engage in this behavior weekly without realizing it. One risky error at a time. This video reveals everything from interactions between enzymes that can shut. The truth about tomato eating will alter your perspective on that seemingly innocuous salad for all time, from essential drugs to harmful substances that build up in your liver. Thousands of people suffer from avoidable health issues every year only because they were unaware of these important truths. However, this is where things start to become interesting. The second mistake on our list is a familiar household item that, when mixed with tomatoes, produces a chemical reaction so alarming that scientists first declined to publish their results. But don't worry, we'll tell you the ideal way to eat at the end, safely to get the most out of tomatoes. Every piece of information on this page is taken straight from published medical cases and peer-reviewed scientific research. I want to ask you 2 questions before we get started on these disclosures. First of all, have you ever eaten tomatoes and then experienced inexplicable digestive problems? Secondly, where do you keep your tomatoes? The fridge? Every comment is being reviewed, and we are providing tailored guidance and recommendations in response. Kindly share your experiences in the space provided below. Without further ado, let's move on to the 6th mistake, the previously unknown truth. The 6th tip is to chill your tomatoes. Although this may appear to be the most harmless error on our list, chilling significantly changes the molecular makeup of tomatoes in ways that science is only now starting to comprehend. When a tomato is placed in a temperature below the standard refrigerator temperature of 55 degrees Fahrenheit, you set off a series of enzymatic breakdowns that eliminate not just flavor, but also nutritional content. Over 25,000 tomato samples were examined in a groundbreaking 2016 study from the University of Florida, which discovered that chilling can cut volatile chemicals by up to 65% in just 7 days. Taste is not the only thing that these volatile chemicals are in charge of. They contain substances like methyl salicylate and hexanol that aid in the body's absorption of lycopene, the potent antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red color. Dr. Harry, CLE, the team leader for the study, found something much more unsettling. In fact, tomatoes' gene expression is changed by the cold temperatures. When exposed to refrigerator conditions, more than 400 genes become inactive. The worst part is still to come. Even with the help of medications, these genes never completely heal. Return the tomato to room temperature. This implies that a tomato's capacity to create some healthy components is irreversibly harmed once it is refrigerated. The ripeness of the tomatoes determines how they should be stored. Stem side down, unripe tomatoes should remain on your counter at temps in the range of 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. According to a 2019 Cornell University study, this position inhibits moisture from penetrating through the stem scar and lowers bacterial development by 40%. You can keep rich tomatoes for up to 3 days at room temperature. If you have to extend, never keep them in the mistake number 5 refrigerator. Instead, keep them in a cold pantry or basement that stays between 55 degrees and 60 degrees throughout their lives. Combining meals high in iron with tomatoes is number 5. This oversight goes unnoticed by even people who are concerned about their health. However, a remarkable relationship between tomatoes and iron absorption is shown by research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. Phytic acid and oxalates which are naturally occurring substances that attach to iron molecules in the digestive tract, are abundant in tomatoes. These substances can lower iron absorption by as much as 50% when consumed with iron-rich meals like spinach, red meat, or fortified cereals. According to a 2018 study that tracked 312 individuals for 6 months, people who frequently ate tomatoes with meals high in iron had noticeably lower levels of ferritin, the protein that your body uses to store iron. Many of the participants were forced into the pan-mic range by the average decline of 23 micrograms each liter. For some populations, this becomes especially risky. Unknowingly, pregnant women who require 27 milligrams of iron per day can, by include tomatoes in their diets, they undermine their intake of iron. Similar hazards apply to vegetarians, athletes, and those who experience heavy menstruation. According to WHO estimates, over 2 billion people worldwide suffer from iron deficiency, and dietary combinations like these play a major role in the issue. The answer is to strategically plan your tomato consumption rather than completely eliminate them. A minimum of 2 hours should pass between consuming foods high in iron and tomatoes. If you must mix them, include vitamin C-rich foods like citrus or bell peppers to balance the iron, reducing effects by as much as 30%. Cooked tomato sauce is less hazardous than raw tomato sauce because cooking tomatoes also lowers their phytic acid concentration by about 20%. Instead of taking iron supplements with mistake, think about taking them with orange juice or on an empty stomach. For dishes that are based on tomatoes, ignoring nightshade sensitivity is number 4. The nightshade family of plants, which includes tomatoes, contains leolcoids, which are natural insecticides. Although the majority of people break down these substances without. Furthermore, between 15 to 20% of people are thought to be sensitive to nightshade in different ways, which can cause inflammation all over the body. 74% of 1,847 autoimmune disease patients in a seminal study that was published in the Journal of Neuroinflammation displayed detectable reduction in symptoms following a 90-day period of avoiding nightshades, especially tomatoes. The enhancements weren't minor. On average, patients reported a 52% improvement in skin diseases, a 38% decrease in digestive problems, and a 43% reduction in joint discomfort. The process by which nightshade sensitivity is caused by these glycoloids interfering with cholesterase, an enzyme essential to healthy nerve activity. Joint inflammation, intestinal issues, and muscular spasms can result from this enzyme's disruption. Norman Childers, MD, who worked at Rutgers University for more than 50 years studying nightshades, and who recorded thousands of instances in which removing tomatoes and other nightshades resolved long-standing health issues. An elimination approach is necessary for nightshade sensitivity testing. For at least 30 days, avoid eating any eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, or potatoes. Maintain a thorough symptom diary, noting your skin health, intestinal function, joint pain, and energy levels. Reintroduce tomatoes only after 30 days, and then wait 72 hours to see how your body reacts. Common side effects include acne breakouts within 48 hours, joint stiffness within 24 hours, and bloating between 2 to 4 hours. You probably have nightshade sensitivity if you have any of these symptoms. Therefore, you should reduce your tomato intake or steer clear of mistake number 3. The whole thing. Third, consuming tomatoes that are damaged or overripe. This error goes into really risky territory. Tomatoes that are overripe or have soft areas provide the ideal conditions for the formation of mycotoxin. Molds create toxic substances called mycotoxins, which, even in very little quantities, can have major negative health impacts. According to research published in the International Journal of Food Microbiology, tomatoes can create 37 different kinds of mycotoxins, the most prevalent and harmful of which are Alteria toxins. Because they can enter the tomato's flesh deeply and are unseen to the human sight, these poisons are especially pernicious. Mycotoxins were detected in 23% of tomatoes that looked only slightly overripe, according to a 2020 study that examined 500 tomato samples from grocery stores. There are serious health consequences. In areas where people frequently eat spoiled vegetables, alternaria toxins have been connected to esophageal cancer. Liver cells' DNA can be harmed by even brief exposure. The European Food Safety Authority's study discovered that consuming just within 2 weeks, 5 micrograms of alternaria toxins per kilogram of body weight each day, roughly the equivalent of 1 moldy tomato, rose cellular damage indicators by 340%. Cooking damaged tomatoes increases the risk. Mycotoxins are not destroyed by heat. As water evaporates, it can actually concentrate them. That tender tomato you added to your spaghetti sauce in the mistaken belief that boiling would render it safe. You just made a concentration of mycotoxin. Researchers from Italy discovered that tomato, up to 5 times as much mycotoxin, was present in sauces prepared from partially damaged tomatoes as in the original fruit. Vigilance is necessary for choosing tomatoes correctly. Check each tomato for wrinkles, dark areas, or soft places. Since mold frequently begins there, the stem area needs extra care. Gently press all over the surface. Any give is a sign of interior disintegration where toxins could be developing. If one tomato in a container has mold on it, throw the others out. The spores of mold spread undetected and taint fruits in the vicinity. Never utilize the remainder after cutting away the bad bits. Mycotoxins can infect places that appear completely okay in mistake number 2 because they travel through dampness. The second is combining some drugs with tomatoes. This is where our tale takes a startling turn. Turn that pharmaceutical firms fervently like to remain silent. High amounts of vitamin K and substances called furanumeranes found in tomatoes can interact with several drugs in ways that doctors rarely tell patients about. Blood thinners like Warren are the most hazardous interaction. About 7 are found in tomatoes. 9 milligrams of vitamin K per 100 grams may not seem like much, but for individuals taking anticoagulants, constancy is essential. According to a Harvard Medical School study that tracked 683 warfarin patients, those who ate more tomatoes has a 31% increased risk of consequences from bleeding. Even more concerning, 44% of patients saw severe fluctuations in their INR readings, which evaluate blood clotting ability, as a result of abrupt increases in tomato intake. However, the interactions are not limited to blood thinners. Some antibiotics can lose up to 40% of their efficacy when consumed with tomatoes. The acidity of tomatoes, which have a pH of 4 or higher, 3 and 4, 9 influences medicine absorption and changes stomach acidity. Heart beta blockers, disorders, thyroid drugs, and even some antidepressants are less effective when taken with meals that contain tomatoes. According to a 2019 pharmaceutical study that did not garner much public coverage, tomatoes' furanumeranes block cytochrome P450 enzymes, which are also impacted by grapefruit. Accordingly, eating tomatoes may result in a hazardous buildup of dozens of drugs in your blood. Regular tomato consumption can reach toxic amounts when taken with some antihistamines, cholesterol statins, and some psychiatric drugs. The secure method calls for precise timing and communication. At least 2 hours before or after eating tomatoes, take your prescriptions. Instead of fluctuating your tomato consumption while on Warren, keep it constant. Maintain a food journal and let your doctor know about it. Above all, don't assume your doctor is aware of these interactions. Just 12% of 500 doctors surveyed knew about tomato medication interactions other than the simple warfarin relation. The first mistake is eating green tomatoes, or tomato leaves. The most hazardous error, which causes yearly ER visits, but is mainly unrecognized by the general public, has been saved for last. Tomatine, a poisonous alkaloid found in green tomatoes and all other green sections of the tomato plant, is a naturally occurring insecticide that the plant manufactures for defense. Although tomatine and solanine, the poison in green potatoes, share structural similarities, research indicates that tomatine may be significantly more harmful. According to a toxicological research published in the Journal of Food Science, green tomatoes had an average totin content of 500 milligrams per kilogram, with some samples having levels beyond 1,000 milligrams. For comparison, 200 g of green tomatoes, or around one large tomato, contain enough tomatin to induce acute poisoning symptoms in susceptible people. The signs and symptoms of tomatin poisoning are terrifying. Within half an hour to 2 hours following intake, sufferers suffer from nausea, vomiting, and excruciating stomach pain. The toxin damages cell membranes all across the body as it enters the bloodstream. As cardiac cells struggle to sustain appropriate electrical signals, heart arrhythmias develop. The respiratory. When the poison disrupts nerve signals to the respiratory muscles, depression ensues. Loss of consciousness and hallucinations happen under extreme situations. Data from emergency rooms paints a disturbing picture. 2,184 cases were reported by the National Poison Data System. 31% of cases of nightshade glycoloid poisoning between 2015 and 2020 were caused by green tomatoes. In nations with adequate medical treatment, fatalities are uncommon, but the long-term consequences can be disastrous. Months after exposure, survivors frequently describe ongoing neurological symptoms, such as memory loss and muscle weakness. Even worse is the toxicity of tomato leaves. Compared to green fruit, their totin contents can be up to 10 times higher. On gardening websites, however, the use of tomato leaves for pest management is mentioned in passing or even suggested as a guidance that could demonstrate. Deadly. The hazard of tomatin is well established scientifically. By attaching itself to sterols, it destroys cell membranes and interferes with the metabolism of cholesterol. Red blood cells burst when exposed to tomatin at quantities as low as 5 micromoles, according to Cornell University research, which eating green tomatoes readily does. Additionally, the toxin weakens the immune system, making patients more susceptible to subsequent infections while they heal. Being vigilant is essential for self-defense. Never consume tomatoes that are green in color. Tiny green shoulders close to the stem, even. Cooking does not considerably break down the poison. Fried green tomatoes, a southern specialty, retain 87% of their totin content, despite assertions to the contrary. Research on food science indicates that pickling lowers levels by just 20%. Hold off until the tomatoes are fully ripe and red. Remove all stems and green sections when tomatin levels fall below 50 milligrams per kilogram, which is widely regarded as safe. Wear gloves when working with plants and wash your hands if you grow tomatoes. Before eating, wash your hands thoroughly. Avoid letting kids or pets near tomato plants. For optimal advantages, the best method to eat tomatoes is to eat them in this manner. You may question whether tomatoes are worth it after learning about these startling risks. Consuming any food. The answer is definitely affirmative, but only if we adhere to certain scientifically validated techniques that turn tomatoes from possible risks into tremendous health benefits. The most significant finding on tomato consumption was made by Ohio State University in 2022. Fundamentally altered our knowledge of lycopene absorption. Researchers discovered that boiling tomatoes with particular lipids results in a remarkable 900% increase in lycopene bioavailability. However, this is what they failed to widely broadcast. The kind of fat has a huge impact. The molecules, called polyphenol found in extra virgin olive oil, have a synergistic impact that not only improves absorption, but also increases lycopene's antioxidant capacity. The ideal cooking technique is to use extra virgin olive oil to heat tomatoes to precisely 190 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Olive oil. Cell walls are broken down at this exact temperature without damaging nutrients that are sensitive to heat. Another important consideration that nutritionists hardly ever address is timing your tomato consumption. Lycopene absorption in your body is regulated by circadian cycles. According to 847 individuals in a Japanese study, consuming cooked tomatoes between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. produced blood lycopene levels that were 45% greater than those obtained from evening intake. This occurs as a result of your tiny. Midday is when the intestines create more bile acids, which are necessary for the absorption of carotenoid pigments. Cooking fats are just one use of the combination concept. Consuming tomatoes with particular foods produces protective synergy that increases benefits and counteracts any risks. Basil, which contains substances that can counteract nightshade alkaloids by as much as 60% and is typically paired with tomatoes. Consuming raw tomatoes necessitates a special protocol. Select tomatoes that are fully ripe and have a deep red tint, which indicates that they contain the most lycopene and the least amount of totein. In order to preserve vitamin C, which quickly deteriorates when exposed to air, cut them soon before eating. Eat raw tomatoes with a fat source at all times. Just adding half an avocado or 1 tablespoon of olive oil to raw tomatoes improved lycopene absorption by 400%, according to a research with 11,000 participants. Most individuals are unaware of how important the variety you select is. Compared to regular tomatoes, San Marzano tomatoes have 280% more lycopene. The largest quantity of flavonoids, which guard against the inflammatory effects that certain people encounter, is found in cherry tomatoes. Heirloom. Commercial hybrids lack the distinct polyphenol that are provided by cultivars, with a lower lycopene concentration. The nutritional value of food is significantly impacted by storage between purchase and consumption. Until the tomato is absolutely ripe, keep it at room temperature with the stem side down. Then, within 48 hours. In contrast to incorrect storage, which retains just 35% of the beneficial chemicals, this strategy protects 95%. Ultimately, the best way to protect yourself from these concealed threats is to be informed. Tell everyone you know who likes tomatoes about this. You may save your own life or the life of a loved one. We'd like to hear from you now. Have you ever eaten tomatoes and then felt bloated, heartburned, or exhausted? What did they eat? And what impact did it have on you? Which of these tomato errors caught you off guard the most? And have you been making it for years without realizing it? Please leave your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. We enjoy listening to them. Thank you for viewing.